Step into the dark with me for a second. Have you ever walked into a space that's just so utterly silent that your own breathing feels like you're violating the room? Welcome to today's Explainer. We're pulling back the veil on one of the absolute most chilling mysteries of the American South. We're looking at a 500-year-old living monument, something that's been drinking the rain and, well, absorbing human tears for over 5 centuries. We're talking about the cursed oak of Charleston.
I want you to really picture this. You're standing out in the pitch black of South Carolina's low country. There's this cold air sweeping past you, and it carries that heavy, kind of metallic scent of damp earth and decayed wood. You look up, and there are these massive, frozen wooden tentacles just stretching out into the black sky. And then, the clock hits midnight. The wind completely dies. Absolute silence. And right then, you notice the darkness above your head is shifting. So tell me, if you were alone in the dead of night under those twisted limbs, would you actually trust your eyes? Or would you run before those shadows reach the ground?
Now, by daylight, this tree is known as the Angel Oak. It's sitting on Johns Island, just outside of Charleston, and it's a 65-foot-tall botanical marvel. I mean, on paper and under the bright sun, it's a gorgeous, peaceful landmark. You've got thousands of tourists flocking there every year, taking those smiling vacation photos under the sunlit leaves. But the locals, the people who have lived there for generations, they know that the second the sun sets and those iron gates close, that peaceful park transforms into something terrifyingly unnatural.
Let's put this into perspective. 17,000 square feet. That's the sheer scale we're dealing with here. Imagine a canopy that massive, casting a shadow over the earth. And these limbs are so incredibly ancient, so unimaginably heavy, that they literally curve all the way down and rest directly on the soil, like exhausted giant arms. It creates this massive, oppressive weight, just pressing down on the earth beneath it.
Part 1. The History of Grief. You see, the horror really begins in the soil itself. To understand why this specific ground feels so heavy and why the air turns ice cold at night, we have to go back, way back to the 1700s plantation era. This tree sits on land originally owned by the Justice Angel estate during a profoundly brutal time in history. Enslaved men and women were forced to work these grounds under just horrifying conditions, and according to deep-rooted local folklore, those who perished without proper burials were placed in unmarked graves right around the root system of this great oak. So, over 5 centuries, those roots reached deep into the earth and slowly wrapped around the bones of the forgotten dead. The folklore implies the tree literally drank from a soil of human tragedy.
There's a quote from regional folklore archives that really hits the nail on the head. Listen to this. Trees do not just grow on water and sunshine. In places with deep tragedy, trees become living record keepers of human grief. Let that linger in your mind for a second. Just the deeply unsettling idea that a massive living organism could actually absorb the pain, the anger, the final sighs of the people buried beneath it.
Part 2. The Midnight Phenomenon.
So the historical trauma is well documented, but the horror? That happens today. Let's map out exactly what goes down when the sun disappears. Have you ever had that feeling where you just know someone is standing right behind you, even when you're completely alone? You know that sudden electric spike of adrenaline right at the base of your neck? Well, that exact sensation is reported by virtually every single night visitor, security guard, or trespasser who's dared to stand near that trunk in the dark.
And the haunting is methodical. We're talking a strict schedule compiled from decades of matching reports. Just look at how this escalates. Right at 9 p.m., all ambient forest noise completely drops out, and unnatural cold spots start forming. By 11 p.m., a thick, dark mist condenses up in the canopy, and you get this heavy pressure on your chest. Then, midnight hits. Eyeless, faceless shadow silhouettes start appearing. And they don't float. They deliberately crawl down the thick bark, moving against the wind, heading straight for the ground. By 3 a.m., witnesses swear they hear desperate whispers echoing from inside the wood itself.
Part 3. A Terrifying Encounter.
Now, it's incredibly easy to brush all this off as just spooky campfire stories, right? But let's look at a highly documented encounter from 2018 involving a local photographer named Marcus Vance. Marcus went out there with high-end camera gear, completely skeptical of the whole shebang. But here is his actual account. At 12:14 a.m., my camera battery, which was at 100%, suddenly drained to 0 in 5 seconds. And it gets worse. When Marcus aimed his manual flashlight right at the central trunk, the beam didn't illuminate the wood. He says it was absorbed by this 3-dimensional darkness,
about 6 feet tall, wrapped around a main limb. And as it turned toward him, a static-laced voice whispered right in his ear, "Leave us."
Yeah, Marcus didn't pack a single thing. He just ran. The very next morning, he went back with park officials to retrieve his gear. His heavy-duty tripod, it was completely crushed flat into the grass, almost like something impossibly heavy had stepped directly onto it. But here's the kicker. There were no human footprints anywhere, just shattered metal.
Part 4. Science versus Paranormal. So, how do we actually explain crushed metal and instantly dead batteries? Well, we look to science. First up, we've got pareidolia. That's the optical illusion theory. Skeptics argue your brain is just desperately trying to find human patterns in the twisting bark and that swaying Spanish moss. It's a solid theory for sure, but impartially speaking, it absolutely fails to explain why multiple eyewitnesses report these shadow figures moving deliberately against the direction of the wind.
Geology, on the other hand, builds a completely different case. The soil on Johns Island has an incredibly high mineral content. So geologists and parapsychologists suggest these minerals create magnetic fields that act like environmental batteries. Under this theory, which is kind of mind-blowing, the Earth is literally recording the intense emotional trauma of the 1700s and then playing it back like a holographic loop whenever the atmospheric conditions are just right.
Finally, environmental science offers up infrasound. Giant old-growth branches can actually funnel the wind to create extremely low-frequency sound waves. These waves are way below human hearing, but they vibrate your eyeballs and your organs. They directly induce dread, nausea, and even vivid hallucinations. It perfectly explains that creepy feeling of being watched. But you know, science still cannot explain Marcus Vance's instantly drained batteries or, obviously, his physically crushed tripod.
Part 5. Guardians of the Land. Long before modern science brought out the electromagnetic meters, the original caretakers of this coast, the Bokit and Kiowa tribes, they had their own profound understanding of these ancient woods. According to indigenous perspectives preserved in Smithsonian archives, this oak isn't inherently evil. The belief is that ancient trees act as bridges to the spirit realm, and over centuries they actually develop a soul of their own. If a tree witnesses deep tragedy and violence, which this one surely did, it becomes traumatized. It essentially transforms into a defensive guardian spirit. So those crawling shadows and whispers, they aren't demons. They're manifestations meant to aggressively ward off human intruders who disrespect the sacred dark. Because of this, and honestly, just for sheer public safety, I have to leave you with a very cold, strict reality check. The park surrounding the Angel Oak is fiercely protected. It is strictly closed to the public at night. Trespassing is completely illegal, heavily enforced, and highly, highly dangerous. Seriously, do not go looking for shadows in the dark.
The cursed oak stands as a silent witness to 500 years of our history, our horrors, and our forgotten dead. Next time you walk beneath an ancient tree at sunset, I want you to pay close attention to the air around you. If the wind dies and the temperature drops, don't wait around. Tell me, are those lingering spirits or just the human mind playing tricks in the dark?